Your Creative Push, episode 296.
Wake up and remember that you are a divine being full of creative power, that you can do amazing things.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Alatar. Alatar is a genderfluid digital artist who creates character-driven adult illustrations. Their work includes both fan art and original content and attempts to explore a wide range of body types, ethnicities, gender identities, and sexualities. And they are also the host of the podcast Blue Magic, where they interview other creatives in the erotic field. And Alatar has been on the show before and killed it and came on today to knock it out of the park once again. This was one of my favorite conversations with one of my favorite people. And where our first conversation ranted off into a lot of talk about video games and stuff, this one ranted off a bit into movies like The Matrix and Star Wars, but it's all good stuff and all a lot of fun. And Al comes on the show today to talk about feeling like an NPC, feeling like a non-player character in your own life and taking control back so that you can become the main character and control the outcome of your life. Al talks about some of the resources that inspired them and how you shouldn't be afraid to Voltron those resources, those different inspirations together to get you back on track. One of the big resources that also helped Al was the Miracle Morning, and we dive deep into that because that's something that I am actually starting to use as well in my creative life, and we'll get into that in the episode, and we actually have a challenge for all of you after the episode as well. We talk about visualization, manifestation, and prioritization, and seeing yourself doing the daily hard work as part of your montage, and even adding a soundtrack to it. They also talk about how the silly and the woo-woo are preferable to the serious, and Gnosticism and how that relates to creativity. Alatar also tells us what to expect and warnings for people who are starting to try something like the Miracle Morning, and tips and hacks for actually waking up earlier every day. Again, a super inspiring conversation for me, one that definitely got me motivated to get to not only my creative passions, but just changing things up in my daily routine. So I know it's going to inspire you as well. And again, stick around after the show to find out more details about our challenge, our kind of Miracle Morning challenge, as well as the new Discord server for you all to join to continue to be inspired. But that's for later. For now, enjoy this wonderful conversation with the amazing Alatar. Al, welcome back to Your Creative Push, my friend.
Hey, Yaman. I'm super excited to be back.
Oh, I am super excited to have you back. And I know, we've kept in contact, and obviously you're like a moderator on the Your Creative Push group, the Facebook group, which I really appreciate. And thank you, my friend, for doing that and helping out.
My pleasure.
But we've been keeping in contact, and I really do consider you my kind of creative friend, which is really nice to have. But
likewise.
You came to me recently and seemed very excited, like you had like a new gusto. And I kind of wanted to maybe catch up from where we last left off from episode 232. If anybody hasn't listened yet, go back and definitely listen to that. But just kind of catch us up and tell us what's been going on with you in your life, creatively speaking and otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. So since the last episode, I was doing my thing, creating as much as I could, pursuing my career as much as I could, and always looking for ways to improve myself, ways to improve my craft, all that. I slowly, in my introspective moments, I became aware of this sense that I really, in order for me to do my best, I had to kind of optimize myself. So I started kind of down a rabbit hole towards that. So I'm looking into self-help books and reading a lot of blogs, doing a lot of self-improvement magic and shadow work, that kind of thing, which we can get into a bit. But I'm at Barnes & Noble one day, and I just suddenly have this feeling just kind of come over me, like this is the day. And I imagined because I was so desperate to move forward, to feel like I was getting somewhere, right? Because I felt like I was kind of a hamster on a wheel. Like I was putting out a lot of effort and I was doing a lot of work, but nothing was really changing in my life. And in my head, I just visualized, okay, what if there's an alternate Al who is on the path to their life changing? And all I've got to do is hop universes. So I like closed my eyes and I took a breath in and exhaled, and I decided that I had hopped universes. All of a sudden, I was like, I felt compelled to go over to walk around the self-help section again, so I did. And I walk around there and I look down, and this book called The Miracle Morning seems like it has a spotlight on it. Like, obviously not physically, but, you know, you've experienced synchronicity before. You know that subjective feeling of significance that overcomes you when something happens and it's a synchronistic event. And that's all I could feel. It was like somebody was, you know, like I said, it felt like there was a spotlight, like there was a gravity well around that book pulling me in. So I picked it up and walked over and plopped down with it and read the first chapter. And it was all about this guy who, I mean, you've read the book at this point. He goes through all this horrible stuff. His life just about falls apart. He almost dies several times, you know, and he begins this morning practice where he incorporates this group of activities that are all things that help grow and improve you and take you in the direction you want in life. And he starts calling it his miracle morning, and it turns his life around. And then he passes it on to his friends and turns their life around. And so it was just this really moving, powerful story about this, you know, practice he just developed out of his own needs. And I just felt that like truth chord in my chest vibrating, you know, just that sense of this is true, this is real, this is what I need. So I scooped the book up and took it home and read it in one night and immediately began applying the Miracle Morning the next day. And that was the beginning of this huge shift, where the best way I could put it is that I went from feeling like an NPC to the main character of the game, if that makes sense. Like
NPC being
non-player character.
Right.
So I'm in role-playing video game terms. That's a non-player character. That's someone who is controlled by the computer, or in the instance of a tabletop RPG, that would be, you know, a character that the dungeon master is controlling. Right. So I felt like I was an NPC. I felt like I was not important to the story. And then through using the Miracle Morning, I began to feel like, no, I'm the player character. I'm the hero. This is my story, and I'm going to kick its ass. So that was the beginning. And then there was a whole, I mean, there have been synchronicity after synchronicity after synchronicity ever since I started on that path, and all kinds of intense things that happened. I was telling you a couple minutes ago that, like, after I read that book, like 3 or 4 other books fell into my life, and they all sort of Voltron together to be this ultimate like practice for me to pursue my self-improvement and my growth as a person.
Right.
And yeah, and I'll absolutely get into kind of more what the Miracle Morning means and what all that did for me. But basically, because I did all that, my artistic practice exploded. My online business exploded. I've got so many more patrons and followers than I had before. I've got dedicated friends and fans who contacted me all the time, who asked me to draw them stuff, who I have people who come to me for critique and stuff now. Like I'm more deeply embedded in the artistic community that I chose to be a part of than I've ever been before. More opportunities have lined up. Like, it just, the veil parted, man. Like, everything changed, you know?
Yeah, and it's so cool seeing the kind of outpouring of work that you're doing too. You're showing me commissions, and then you're like, "Hey, we have like safe for work stuff we can do next time I'm on."
Yeah.
Like, it's just like you're pumping out content, which is awesome. But it all comes back to that, like that first moment of, you know, realizing that, you know, if you are in this like video game or whatever of your life, there's a controller, and all you have to do is pick it up. And I love that idea of like when you kind of see this book or whatever it is, you have this moment. I have had it with books as well, but I've had it with like certain songs that I've heard that I wanted to do a music video for. And I think it's like kind of like you were talking about with having, you know, all you have to do is go to this alternate universe, this, you know, flip the dimensions or whatever. I honestly believe that we're so attracted to some of these things and we feel this pull towards some of these things because we've already done it in that timeline. And all we have to do is go over to that timeline that we're pulled to and just ride it out so that you can kind of either create a product from it or be inspired by it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, reality is probabilistic, right? We know this, like, on the quantum level, and I do not claim to be a quantum physicist of any level, but my basic understanding of it is that when you get down to the subatomic particles, things are no longer definite, they are probabilistic. So it might be a particle, it might be a wave, and the thing that determines that is observation. In other words, interaction with consciousness. So, I mean, absolutely, like at any given point, there's all kinds of probabilities, and you making a decision or leaning into a feeling you have affects that probability and sets off another chain of events that creates a new world. And I truly believe I stepped into another world in that moment, because I chose to believe that.
Yeah, and you said something really important too at the beginning of that story about wanting to optimize yourself, and that's something that I for everybody listening, I just finished reading The Miracle Morning as well, and I'm kind of excited to start on that journey because of all the benefits that it has given to Al. But one of the things that really stood out to me is this kind of truth that I think we all know. It's like that you have to take yourself to the next level before you can take your success to the next level, and you really have to fix yourself before you can even start to contemplate thinking about doing any of the other things that you want to get to in life. You have to change your actual behavior and yourself first.
Right, absolutely. And that's because I'm a big fan of Alan Watts. I don't know if you've ever listened to any of his talks or read his
Alan
stuff.
Watts.
Okay, so you know the deal with, like, you are the universe, right? Like, everything you think that's outside your head, it's not. It's in your head. It's part of your reality. When you're observing things outside yourself, you're actually observing yourself. So if you want to change those things that you perceive as being outward, the best place to start is inward and let it flow from there, right? And so I absolutely believe, like, the moment you start working on yourself and changing yourself and who you are and how you operate in the world, the rest of it flows from there.
Could not agree more. Well, now kind of take us further down the journey. What are some of the other things that you have come across? Because part of the Miracle Morning is reading, and it's kind of finding that extra time to read, because I think that's most people's excuse to let them not read or let them not kind of help themselves. And I think the Miracle Morning gives you that time in order to start reading and start bettering yourself even further. So can you kind of take us down that journey?
Yeah. So as I got into the Miracle Morning, the next book that kind of highlighted itself to me was a book called You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. I heard about it on an episode of Rune Soup, a very good episode called Manifestation in 2018. The guest on it's Connor Habib, and they kind of talk about visualization and manifesting, which is another aspect of the Miracle Morning. So they kind of dovetail nicely anyway. So I picked up You Are a Badass, and that book, it has tools for affirmations. It has tools for how to visualize, how to shift your beliefs in yourself. Like we talk about starting within and then everything evolving from without, right? And a lot of that stems from like your core beliefs about yourself. So if you believe, oh, I'm a struggling artist, well then yes, you are. But if you start believing I'm a badass, I am, one of my affirmations is I'm a professional artist, and I say that to myself every day, because a professional artist doesn't make excuses, does the work, and the work is good and people enjoy the work, right? So I learned more about through that book, I learned how to figure out, like, what are my negative self-beliefs? What are the things that I am internally holding myself back with, and I don't even realize I'm doing it? How am I being my own enemy? And then knowing that, how can I turn that around and do the opposite? How can I heal that aspect of myself and turn myself into my biggest ally? How can I shift my beliefs such that I believe this is a world in which I can create the things I want to create and I can experience the things I want to experience? So that was hugely influential and powerful. I read both of her books, You're a Badass and You're a Badass at Making Money, and they were incredible and wonderful, and I learned so much from them. And again, they I'm going to keep saying Voltron because it's awesome. they Voltron together, right? They come together and they become stronger than their individual parts. I also got into, there's another New Thought guy named Neville Goddard, who he's super fascinating. I started listening to audiobooks of his stuff while I was at work. His thesis basically is that the entire Bible is an allegory, and that in the Bible, God is your consciousness. And that the entire Bible is teaching you how to use your consciousness to create your reality. Super interesting way of looking at the Bible and the gospel and all that myth, and a good way of interrogating mythology in general, which is to kind of take that Joseph Campbell stance on and say, okay, but where am I in this story? Who am I in this story that I'm consuming? And so that kind of reminded me about that, and again, kind of dovetailed with the manifestation and the visualization and all that, right? So it all kind of started coming together. And so what that did was, as part of my miracle morning practice, was, as you know, part of it is visualization. And so a big thing I was doing was visualizing the ideal life I want to live, what my ideal day would be, how I would be spending my time. Like if there was no object, nothing in my way, and I could spend my time however I wanted, how would it be? That was kind of the question I was asking myself, and I was imagining these days and how they would go and what they would be like. And every time I was drawing like a maniac. Like I was drawing like a maniac, like drawing as constantly as I could, studying, watching videos, reading books, everything came back to creating. Now, obviously there were other things. I spent time reading and, playing inspiring games, spending time with my family and friends, all those things that were important to me. But my point is, what this visualization exercise did, not only is it helping me to manifest that reality in which I'm spending that time, but it's also making me aware of what my desires truly are. And that helped me to prioritize. And to say, okay, what's actually important to me and what can go? And as a person who struggles massively with FOMO, that was one of the most empowering things I've ever had happen to me. The ability now, like I've never had this power before, and now I have the power to look at something that I'm genuinely interested in but don't have time for and just say, oh well, because I'm getting what I do need. I have my hill to die on, right? The things that I'm not going to let go of, the things that matter most to me. And so I can let go of the other distractions. And you've talked about that before, how, you love TV and stuff, but you've kind of had to, accepting special occasions, back off of it in order to make time for your passions. And it's hard to do that when it all feels important, but when you can put it in perspective and say, well, this is nice, but it's not my driving force. I can live without it.
No, I agree completely. Yeah. And that was one of the, I think, toughest parts of the Miracle Morning is, realizing that you have to come up with your life purpose. You have to come up with that kind of goal or that thing that you want to strive for, that thing that you want to, not just like with your art, but just like how you want to define yourself as a human being. And it's a scary thing to do, but like through the practice of journaling and constantly kind of working on it and tweaking it, you can come to that realization, and then everything does become easier. It is easier to trim that fat. It is easier to cut things out of your life that don't lead to that ultimate thesis statement that you have.
Absolutely. And it helps. It really does help to literally write out a statement, like to figure out what your life mission is. I got this from, I forget her last name, but her name is Ivy. She runs a website called Circle Thrice, which is her blog about her magical practice. And she combines magic with agile project management. Super fascinating. But part of agile is having a mission statement. So she's like, okay, so what if you apply agile to your life? And so she was like, you need to come up with a mission statement for your life. And mine is, I define my life purpose as to trade inspiration and enchantment with the world. And so that's kind of my compass, right? Whenever I have to ask myself, by doing this, am I enabling myself to trade inspiration and enchantment with the world? If the answer is yes, then we're going ahead. If the answer is no, then maybe now's not the time. But I wanted to mention something. You talked about using the Miracle Morning to kind of figure out your purpose. And I know that's a very daunting thing for a lot of people. Certainly it's been for me. And I want to share a little bit of a hack that can help you figure that out.
Okay, nice.
You know how in Aladdin he says there's no wishing for more wishes?
Right.
That's bullshit. you can absolutely wish for more wishes. And what I mean by that is, if you don't know your life purpose, create an affirmation that says, I know what I'm doing. I know my life purpose. I am a driven individual who knows their meaning in life. And start saying that to yourself every day. Before long, you're going to find yourself figuring it out. You won't know exactly how it's going to come about. Don't worry yourself over the how. Just know that by telling yourself that every day and by reprogramming yourself to believe that you know your purpose, that you know your calling, you will find it.
Right. And I think that that's what a lot of people's like hiccups with like the idea of The Secret or like, you know, vision boards or manifestation is that it's like, all right, like it sounds too magical. It sounds too woo woo or whatever. But I do think that it is just programming your brain and your like soul to be seeking towards those things. And I mean, I like you said, neither of us are scientists or anything like that,
Yeah.
But I think there is definitely scientific validation to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if we want to take a purely reductionist, materialist viewpoint, if we want to say this isn't a magical universe, spoiler, it is, but if we want to say that it isn't, and we want to say that everything is pure matter and there's no such thing as consciousness and all that horse shit, if we want to assume that, okay, you know the blue car effect, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what you're doing to yourself, right? When you buy a blue car, suddenly you see every blue car on the road, right? So if on your mind is always, I know my life's purpose, I know this, I know that, or I attract money, or whatever it is, now you've programmed your mind to be constantly looking for those things, and you're going to see those opportunities to live that belief more often because you've programmed it into your unconscious thinking processes, right? So even from a purely materialistic standpoint, we know this stuff works. But I mean, it's not a materialist universe. Like, this is a magical universe. We know it is. Like, just let go and believe it, man. I'm telling you.
Right. I love that, the blue car analogy in comparison to that. And it's true because like the rear view mirror syndrome, where, you know, you look back at all the mistakes you've made in the past and, you know, how yesterday you were like a lazy piece of shit, or you didn't get to your creative passion, or you didn't work out, or, you know, you were mean to your wife or your dog or whatever the kind of Groundhog Day thing that you're trying to escape and saying, all right, maybe tomorrow it will be different. But you keep looking back at the past instead of trying to like make that small tweak, like that hack. It really is a hack because our brains are programmed to look back at the past and to try to keep ourselves safe, as opposed to manifesting our own future and making tomorrow different than yesterday by doing something different or by finding something different from the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if I can quote my favorite Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn, your focus determines your reality. So whatever you dwell on, that's what you're going to be seeing all the time. That's what you're going to believe. That's what you're going to see. So why not dwell on the good things? If you can't bring yourself to dwell on things that you haven't seen yet, if you can't have that faith, fine, dwell on the good things that are happening and make those grow. So, you know, if you do something and you're proud of that, then focus on that, celebrate it, dwell on it, think about it over and over and over again, write it down in your journal, but like, today I kicked ass at this, that, and the other thing, and just focus on that and watch it grow.
Could not agree more, except for, I don't know if Qui-Gon's my favorite.
Who's your favorite?
I don't know. I think Luke, man.
I don't blame you one bit. Luke is a phenomenal character and an incredible Jedi, and there's a lot to learn from his story and from the things he said.
Crabby in his old age, though.
So I gotta ask, you liking the new trilogy?
No, so I do like the new... I like The Force Awakens, and I didn't like The Last Jedi as much, although I thought it was visually awesome and they did like a lot of cool things. I thought it got a little too weirdly political, and I just don't like the way Disney's like handling the idea of having no set storyline, like no overall goal in mind. It's just like one director handing a screenplay off to the next. Like, I don't really think that that's the best way to tell a story, and they seem to like really dismiss and hate Star Wars fans.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, because on the one hand, a lot of Star Wars fans are shitheads. I'm just going to say it. Like,
yeah,
and they need to get over themselves. I think what they're trying to do is replicate the magic of the original trilogy, because George Lucas can claim all day long that he had it all planned. He fucking did not. He made it up as he went. You can tell. And I think they're kind of trying to recreate that magic by keeping that uncertainty in it. But I agree that it would have benefited from some kind of overarching direction to kind of make sure they were a little more cohesive. I loved The Last Jedi on its own. Paired with The Force Awakens, it starts to have a lot of problems because of the, where the hell are the Knights of Ren? Where the hell are they? He set up a lot of really cool mysteries in Force Awakens, and a lot of those just kind of got jettisoned. But I think The Last Jedi had a really great story, and my favorite thing about Star Wars is Force philosophy and the mythological nature of it. And it had that in spades. Going back to what we were talking about earlier about you're consuming a myth. Ask yourself, who are you in this myth? If I'm Luke, what does that mean about me? Watch that movie and ask yourself if it's a message for you. And viewed from that lens, I learned a lot from watching The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I don't really do that necessarily with movies too much, but I probably should. When it comes to rewatching it through a character's lens or the character that spoke the most to me. Mm-hmm. Asking exactly like you said.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big part of how I interrogate reality is through stories and mythology. I mean, I grew up on Star Wars. My mom showed them to me when I was 6. And I've been watching them ever since. And I mean, when I was in middle school, I had the Obi-Wan haircut. I had the apprentice braid and the ponytail on the back of my head and the buzz cut on top.
Yes.
Whole 9 yards. I was so cool. I was not cool. I got made fun of a lot. Middle school was kind of hell for me, but whatever.
It's okay.
But yeah, I've always seen the world through kind of mythological eyes. And when I started, learning from people like Alan Watts and Joseph Campbell and kind of learning how to interrogate reality through mythology, that's when things really kind of turned around for me. It can be really powerful to watch a movie like Star Wars and just assume there's a message for you somewhere in that movie. Just go in with that assumption and then figure out what it is. Some powerful shit will happen. I made a mistake by bringing up Star Wars because I will talk about Star Wars literally all day long and never get sick of it. Like I said, I grew up with it. So Jane, stop this crazy thing.
It's one of those things where it's so ingrained in your psyche that you can't, when it's brought up, you can't help but, talk about it. It's if anybody talks about cryptocurrency, around me, I have to, I have no choice. I'm damn, I have to join this conversation. Mm-hmm. Or for example, I was camping last weekend and we were walking through this gorge and it was with my wife's friend. It was for her birthday and so it was a whole bunch of her friends that I didn't really know that well. And we got to this part of the gorge where it showed an infographic type of thing about the continents and how they used to all be one continent, Pangea or whatever.
Yeah.
And how they separated. And this guy, he's like, this is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, what? I couldn't tell what he was talking about. The fact that they were pointing out where New York State was, or he's they really think that they who did this, a third grader, just because they look like they fit together like puzzle pieces, that doesn't mean that they were all one thing. And so I let it go, and my wife and I were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I really wanted to argue with that guy or try to prove a point, and she was like, I'm really proud of you for not.
Yeah.
And later that night by the fire, he was saying how he doesn't believe that dinosaurs are real.
Oh, of course.
I was
because
no.
The devil planted the bones to deceive us all, don't you know?
It was less that and more of just that they just make shit up, that none of the bones actually exist, and they a Tyrannosaurus Rex never existed or whatever. And fucking 25 minutes before that, we were talking about how Jurassic Park was one of his favorite movies. And I was I kind of let him off
Cognitive
easy.
Dissonance.
I let him off easy, but I was still man, you literally just said Jurassic Park was one of your favorite movies. He's like, yeah, I know, but it's all fun. I was oh,
yeah,
God.
I guess.
Anyway,
but
it's when certain things come up, you have to, you have to dive in.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, I can kind of understand where he's coming from. I'm something of a Gnostic, and so I always doubt the official story and doubt official reality. So I think it can be useful to be like, well, is this real or am I just accepting it on authority? But taking it to that extreme, I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know anything, and all I do is trust the smart people to tell me what reality is like. But I'm okay with like reality changing. Like, for example, with like dinosaurs, like they don't look like they do in Jurassic Park. Like they recently found that out, that they were probably covered in feathers and were much more bird-like. And like I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with being able to like change my belief system as new information comes out. But whatever.
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up because so I mentioned briefly on the last interview, and I'm, making no bones about it through this entire talk we've had, but I'm a practicing chaos magician. And one of the things of chaos magic is the ability to step in and out of a belief system. So you believe something long enough to make it work, and then you stop believing it if needs be. And that's sort of, Gordon White put it really well in his book, The Chaos Protocols, when he says, always put a question mark at the end of the word reality and own the responsibility that comes with doing that. And I think that's a pretty powerful way to think about things. Like, earlier in this talk, we were talking about, how I believed that I stepped from one reality in which I was the NPC into another in which I was the player character, right? That was a belief system, essentially, that I adopted. So I think having flexibility as to how you perceive and interact with reality makes reality a lot more easy to navigate and a lot more malleable.
No, I completely agree. And I would note that it's like especially important to make sure that it's by doing something like that, it's like making it work for you, like making it benefit you, as opposed to the other way of saying, well, there's no hope for humanity, there's no hope for artists, there's no hope for me. To make it work the opposite, like to make it work in your benefit.
I mean, let's take it back to Star Wars, because why the fuck not, right?
Yes, why not?
Why the fuck not? Okay. Luke walks up to Yoda after Yoda levitates the X-Wing. And what does Luke say? I don't believe it. And Yoda says, and that is why you fail. I don't believe it. That is why you fail. If you believe you can't lift that X-Wing, you can't. You're correct. Whatever you believe is your subjective reality, that's the reality you're going to experience. So if you believe that you're powerless, yeah, you are. You've hamstrung yourself. You've taken your power away. You have no power because you've decided you have no power. But if you decide and you look in the mirror and you say, I am powerful and I am inspired and creative and capable of making amazing things that move people or whatever it is that matters to you, and you sit there and say that to yourself and you drill it into yourself until you believe it, then that's reality.
Right. I see it so often in the poker room. It's the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's, people saying that, or even to me as a dealer, like I come and sit down and some people will get up for half an hour that I'm dealing to them because they're so afraid of getting beat again, like as if I am some kind of either doing it on purpose to them or I'm just like bad luck. But you see it also with like they'll play and they'll be like, oh, this dealer always deals me bad beats. So then they'll flop like a really good hand. They'll flop a set. And instead of betting and trying to make the other players pay to catch their draws, to catch their flush draws, they just check it because they're so scared of the flush coming. They're so scared that I'm going to screw them over again that they don't want to put any more money in the pot when they should be defending their hands. And then, lo and behold, they let their opponent get to the river for free and they hit their flush. And then they blame me. I'm like, it's not my fault. Like, you're playing terribly. Like, it's just
you're doing this to yourself.
Prophecy.
Yeah.
So yeah, but if you have that kind of belief system, like we were talking about before, with the rear view mirror syndrome, like believing that the mistakes of your past are going to always be in front of you, is just such a detrimental mistake.
Yeah, and it's just a story you're telling yourself. Like, that's all it is. Like practice mindfulness and meditation for a while, and you'll see that your mind is constantly yammering on with all these stories it's telling itself. You have like a narrator that lives in your brain that's constantly narrating your life. And if you're going to have the narrator anyway, why not narrate a good story?
Right.
Like if you're going to be telling yourself a story constantly anyhow, which you can't help, it's just natural human nature. Like, we just do it. We yammer on in our heads about what's going on. You can't necessarily control whether or not you're narrating, but you can control the tone of the narrator. And I mean, if if this is my life and I'm the one directing this movie, then absolutely I want the awesome epic voice guy narrator talking about how badass my life is.
Yeah.
In a world. Like, I want that guy narrating my life.
Yeah, and we actually, I think, even mentioned this the last time you were on. It's my favorite quote from Joe Rogan. It's like, if you are watching yourself in the movie, like, and you're watching like that montage, like, all you have to do is do the thing that you want, like, yourself to be if you're the hero of that story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the first thing you're gonna do in that montage to get your life back on track or to get towards your goal? And yeah, like, montages like go quick in movies, and they actually take long in practice and in life, and they take hard work and discipline to, like, you know, do
Mm-hmm.
those Rocky scenes of working out and whatnot. But all you have to do, like, literally all you have to do is do that thing that you know that hero is supposed to do.
Yeah,
and just do it.
Yeah. And I mean, and there's another hack, right? That you can kind of, like, when you're doing that hard thing, tell yourself, this is my training montage. I look so badass right now, you know?
Yeah.
Even, like, put the Rocky soundtrack on when you do it. Like, I have a playlist on my Spotify. Because I'm a really cool person who names things clever things. It's called Frequency Razor EX Alpha. Because I just, life is too short not to be ridiculous sometimes. But the purpose of that is to be the epic soundtrack to me kicking ass. And whenever I feel lame, I put that little soundtrack on and I let it pump me up and psych me up and get into that headspace where I believe that I'm a badass, you know. And it's full of all kinds of stuff that's, you know, it's full of cool raps about being a badass, and it's like got stuff from the Sonic Adventure 2 soundtrack that just gets me really pumped, and like whatever else. It doesn't matter what, you know, use what works for you, but that's my training montage music, man. And I put it on, and that reminds me, that's right. I'm just in the training montage right now. Like, I'm on my way, you know. It can really help.
Absolutely, yeah. In reading The Miracle Morning, when he talks about affirmations and then visualizations, he actually mentions, like, you know, a lot of people like to listen to music. Like, you might want to listen to classical music or maybe some epic music, like something that will pump you up. And that really resonated with me as somebody who, you know, as one of my creative things tries to incorporate music into my writing. It was like perfect. I was like, yes. And I think a lot of times people might think that's like a silly thing to do. Like, first of all, it's silly maybe to sit there and visualize yourself being a better version of yourself, because it seems so simple and so woo-woo. But then on top of that, you're going to add like a soundtrack to it. Like, get the fuck out of here. But like, I think it's so important. And music for me is, aside from smells, it's like that it brings me back to places. So if I can sit there, you know, feeling powerful or feeling the way that my life is going to change or where I want to be, and it has a soundtrack to it, I don't think there's any better thing to look back to or to actually feel those emotions as I'm going through the hard parts of my day than to have that soundtrack with it.
Hell yeah. And there's two things I want to say about that. One is, basically what it's doing is it's acting as an emotional anchor, right? This is something I learned in my martial arts days. So in the martial arts, we have what we call power positions, which are basically stances and moves that you do that exist for the sole purpose of putting you in a certain frame of mind. The most common is attention ready. So you hit attention position, which is exactly what you think it is. Hands at your side, you kind of slap your thighs. And then ready position is you set your feet apart and you kind of punch downward in front of you as if you were trying to break bricks in front of you, and you key up. And the point of it is, if you can guess by the names of it, is to make you attentive, present in the moment, and ready for action. And so every time you take those positions, you're training yourself, when I take this position, I'm in this headspace, right? And so whenever, you know, I was a teacher, and so if I could tell that the students were kind of wavering in their focus, I'd suddenly, attention, ready, you know, and I'd get them back, and just like that, they're all back on track. And I think music and things like that can act in the same function. It can act as an emotional anchor that, you know, you take that moment to put that song on, or take that physical action, or put that article of clothing or jewelry on that for you symbolizes whatever it is. I'm a creative person, I'm magically powerful, whatever it is. And that shifts your reality and shifts your belief into gear, right? The other thing I wanted to say about that was I wanted to pull on the "this is silly" thread for a second. Why do we think these things are silly? Why does that bother us? Because if I can quote John Cleese, I don't know what being serious is for. Like, I don't know what being all serious and solemn and oh, woe is this is for outside of a funeral. Like, seriously. And actually, I would really recommend watching John Cleese's talk on creativity. And that's when he said that. The whole talk is about getting into the open mode or creative mode. And he said that one of the surest ways to kill that is to be all serious and solemn. You want to be playful, right? But I have a little bit of I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat here for a second.
I'll put mine on too.
Okay, it's sitting nicely on my head.
I had it ready for this interview.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. It's required attire, right? Along with your wizard robes and your plastic lightsaber.
Of course.
So, as I mentioned previously, I'm something of a Gnostic. And the Gnostic worldview, if you want to understand very quickly the Gnostic worldview, just look at the Matrix, right? Evil machines, humans are asleep, the machines are getting power from the humans are trapped in an illusion. That's Gnosticism 101, right? But imagine the Matrix, except all of us are Neo. Every one of us has the power to reshape the Matrix as we see fit. The machines do not want you to know that. And I'm using machines as an analogy. There's other words for them, but let's just say the machines, the archons, whatever you want to call them. The man, if we can use that great phrase. If they want you to stay asleep, to not be creative, to show up, work your 9 to 5, produce the money that they can live off of, the energy they can live off of, whatever, and then go back to sleep ad nauseum. The last thing they want is you doing anything that empowers you. So what would be one of the easiest ways of discouraging people from doing those things?
Making it seem silly.
Making it seem silly. Making it seem ridiculous. Making people dismiss it out of hand without ever even trying it. That's what I think that feeling is. That's why I think that's there. That's programming put into this reality to try and keep us from living from our creative selves, from living from our most powerful, reality-altering selves. Because here's the thing. The Gnostic myth says that in each of us is a spark, is a fragment of the one true God. Like, of the force, the energy, whatever you want to call it, that created this world lives inside of you, right? And we have the power to be co-creators of the world and to change our reality and all this stuff, but we get put to sleep because some evil power or whatever wants to use it. Now, whether all this is literally true is beside the point, honestly. I'm looking at this mythologically. If you assume this is a belief system, what does that do to you? How does that affect how you're going to interact with reality, right? That's the point. And so if you start thinking that way, all of a sudden these things don't look silly anymore. They actually look incredibly empowering. Now, you might feel silly as hell, like Neo did the first time he did the jump program, right? He fell on his ass. You know, you're not exactly going to feel like the coolest kid on the block, but keep at it. And you can unlock incredible power.
No, I totally agree. And whether it's, you know, a Gnostic thing or if it's just the fact that we fall into patterns, and as a society and for a society to kind of grow, I'm always talking about like the idea of like escaping this like machine that's trying to just keep, you know, factory producing things and producing, you know, more money for, like you said, not for you.
Yeah, no, I sure as shit ain't profiting off of what I'm doing.
Right. But I do think that like it's just like a mental thing that we all kind of fall into. And like when so many people are thinking, well, even in the Miracle Morning, he talks about how 95% of people are a part of that and just are going to go through one day to the next and not really thinking about too far in the future. And it's kind of like you have to escape, just like Neo, and get picked up by the Nebuchadnezzar. You know, like you have to kind of escape that 5%. And sometimes it almost, he even says like you might feel guilty about leaving everybody else that's kind of just caught down this river. But whether it's like whether there's nefarious people at the top of this like pyramid or not, I think that it is a system that's in place and something that requires escape.
Yeah, whether it's self-imposed or imposed by human rulers or metaphysical rulers, or if it's just part of the natural order of things, is kind of irrelevant. The point is, there is a prison, and it is incumbent upon us to escape, right? Like, you've heard the phrase, the world needs people who have come alive, And, I mean, there's so much wisdom in the Matrix relative to that, right? Like, the fact that when he first wakes up, when he's first freed from the Matrix, it's a very painful and disillusioning experience. But it's also liberating and empowering, and in time, he's able to do miracles. He's able to alter the fabric of reality in and out of the Matrix. That's the cool part. I know people can argue about whether the second and third movie are good or not. I'm not going to talk about whether they're good. I'm going to talk about whether the story is useful at this point.
Right.
And that's something worth pointing out real quick as kind of a warning that when you start doing this stuff, like you start doing the miracle morning, you start doing self-awakening work, you start altering your reality, the world kind of kicks back a little bit. So you've got cryptocurrency. I'm going to talk about something I'm super into, which is the ketogenic diet.
Cool.
That's how I eat. If you want to know more about it, just go to ruled.me. You can read up about it. It's a phenomenal way of eating. It's changed my life to eat this way. I have more energy. I've lost weight, all kinds of stuff. But the essential thing about the ketogenic diet is that instead of using glucose for your main energy, you use what's called a ketone body, which is something your body produces when there isn't a lot of glucose. It's a more efficient energy source for your brain. It has a million other benefits. Go read up about it if you're interested in. But what I want to talk about it with that is when you first make the switch from a carbohydrate heavy diet to keto, you get what's called keto flu. While your body's adapting to the change, you get really dehydrated, you feel nauseous, you get a headache, you're kind of dizzy for a while, like you just kind of feel sick for a bit. There's ways to kind of mitigate it, but whether it's for a day or for a week, you're probably going to feel gross for a while, right? And I think that's a perfect analogy for whatever happens when you try to transform your life, is you're going to get keto flu writ large. The universe is going to kind of feel gross for a bit. I know it certainly did for me when I first started doing the Miracle Morning and started making these significant life changes and changing what I believed about myself and believing myself to be this powerful co-creator of my reality and all this stuff. Things went wrong, man. My car broke down. Like, a bunch of bills came in that I didn't know were coming in, and my wife got sick. Like, all this crazy shit happened, and you could say that that's unrelated, but my gut was telling me this is because I am on a spiritual level eating healthier, and to take it back to that Alan Watts, you are the universe, my body, air quotes, is reacting. So whether you believe that literally or not, it's a useful belief to adopt, because that way when the going gets tough, you can say, well, this is just a sign that I'm getting healthier. This is just a sign that I'm getting better because the world's kicking back a little bit and I just got to push through. This is just metaphysical flu and I'll get better.
Right. You have to hit that escape velocity.
Yeah. And there's resistance at first. That's, you're burning through the atmosphere. Like, it's not exactly going to be a pleasant experience for a while, but then there's going to be a pop where you break through the atmosphere and suddenly there's no friction anymore. You're in space. It's fucking cool.
Right. Okay. So good warning for me. I think that, it's important to not take those first, what you might perceive as signs that you shouldn't be doing this thing, that you shouldn't be trying to better yourself. And look, here's proof that just go back to your old ways. It's important to try to push through them and to, I guess, try to also, it's like little free tests right at the start. Like, how are you going to handle this bad thing that happened? Are you going to go into it in a better mindset? Like, here's a little practice for you. Take a deep breath and not go into your old patterns, or not freak out about it, and try to handle it in a more kind of level-headed way,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a test of, you can look at it as a test, right? As like, you're being asked, okay, but do you really want this? Like, are you willing to stick through this crap to get there?
Right.
And not everybody is. There are ciphers out there who want a blue pill.
Fucking cipher.
Such an asshole. He got what was coming to him, though.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have that important thesis statement, that important
Yeah,
life purpose, so that, it is easy to kind of blast through and see where you want to end up.
Yeah, and that actually brings up another book that kind of Voltroned into the whole machine, as it were, of all these books that I got into, which is a book called Willpower. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of it. I'll look it up and send it to you so you can put it in the show notes. But it's talking about how there's a lot of scientific research that has shown that willpower is kind of like a muscle. And I believe you've actually mentioned that notion on the show before, that your willpower is kind of like a muscle, you can grow it. But it also talks about a lot of things that can fatigue your willpower, and then strategies for preserving your willpower. And one of the strategies is what they call bright lines, which is basically like, this is your line in the sand, this is your hill to die on. And it's something you decide ahead of time. So that way it's no longer a decision you have to make, because making decisions is what erodes your willpower, right? So if it's no longer a decision, if it's just, this is what I do, this is who I am, period. And when you encounter those difficult situations, you can kind of fall back on that bright line. And I think having that life thesis statement functions very much that way, where like when it gets tough, you fall back on that statement and says, yes, but this is who I am, this is my purpose. And to get there, I have to do this. That mitigates that, like, that desire to give in.
Right. Well, and one of the things I'm most scared of not having the willpower, or at least the willpower to continue to do, is actually waking up early. Because I've always defined myself as a night owl, and of course, like we've been talking about the rear view syndrome the whole time here, I don't want to fall into that and say that, maybe I'm just telling myself that I'm a night owl. But so basically, how did you do it? Do you have any advice for me or for anybody else listening? Because I know that it's so easy. Like, you have, especially if you have a full-time job, you have this big chunk of time right in the middle of your day. And then you have time, either maybe very limited time during that time to get to your creative passion or get to whatever you want to do. And then you have a block of time after and before. And then the other block is sleep, of course. And for me, I basically sleep till the last possible minute and then shower and go to work, and then I just have my gap at the end. So I'm very excited to make another gap in the beginning of my day, and then of course the end of my day will probably shrink, which will be fine. But I've never in my life been able to consistently wake up early or like have the willpower to do it. Through this podcast, I've been advised to do it, like many people, like Rob Teodoro, and a lot of people have shown me the importance of doing it, but I can't stick with it. So how can I do it?
It's tough, man. I completely identify with everything you just said. Before I started doing this morning thing, it was the same thing for me. I slept to the last possible second, got ready in a flash, and got out the door. And I tried to spend my time, doing my thing in the evenings, but I had this gut level instinct of, I'm not bringing my full A game to my evenings. I'm tired. I'm burnt out. I can't focus. So that's where I started thinking, God, I got to do this in the morning. Well, as you'll remember from the book, there are some hacks you can do that help you wake up a little better. Have a glass of water. I call it my sippy cup, but because again, life is too short not to be ridiculous. I have a sippy cup. It's a tumbler cup with a lid, right? And I make sure every night, part of my night ritual is I fill that up with water, and I have it sitting by my bedside. So the first thing I do when I wake up is kick my feet over the edge, grab my sippy cup, and take a drink. So that way I'm not dehydrated, and that helps me feel more awake. There's a couple other hacks you can do, like brushing your teeth, all that, things that stimulate you. One of the things I do is I quickly check my phone just to see if I missed any notifications overnight, so that way I'm kind of staring into that light. Be careful with that. You don't want to fall down the trap of getting on social media or something on your phone and then spending your entire morning on your phone. But if there's just something quick you can look at that takes a few seconds but puts that light in your eyes, that'll help drive down the melatonin and wake you up. So those are little things. Those are little hacks. They won't do everything. What I would say is your bright line needs to be that you're going to get up. If you get up and you do jack shit, big deal. You got up. You win. That's it. Make that, set the bar for victory in the beginning very low, just to say, okay, in the beginning, all I've got to do is get up. The rest is gravy, but I've got to get up. And then you'll find eventually you're like, well, I'm already up. I might as well, do a couple sun salutations, whatever your exercise that you've decided you're going to do is, right? I'm already up. But build the small victories every day. So, yeah, that's the big thing I would say is like make the fact that you're getting up your bright line that you will not under any circumstances give up on. And then, because otherwise if you try to say, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this huge routine and I'm going to do it, like that depletes tons of willpower all at once. So start small with just the act of getting up. And you can also, I mean, there's a million ways to do that. You could just get up 15 minutes earlier than you usually do and say, okay, for the next month, all I'm going to focus on, the only habit I'm going to build is that every week I'm going to get up 15 minutes earlier, and slowly build that up and build on those small wins every day. This is something you already do. You have your little uncomfortable thing that you mark off every day, right?
Uncomfortability calendar. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Same thing. Make another box on that, and that's successfully got up. And don't break the chain.
Yes.
And motivate yourself by how cool it's going to be to look up and see all those X's. I did that. I kind of tracked whether I got up. There's a lot of really cool tools out there that help. There's a journal I got. I actually only got about halfway through it before I felt like I had used it up as much as I needed it. But there's a journal called the Morning Sidekick Journal, which is a daily journal designed to help you build the habit of getting up early. Something like that may be useful because that'll hold you accountable to get up, check this. And that brings me to the next thing that I think is very helpful: have an accountability partner. I have a friend who, about a week after I got into the Miracle Morning, I was gushing about it to him, and he was super, super interested. So I gave him a copy of the book, and we started doing our mornings kind of together, where we would check in on Marco Polo together, or we would send each other a video, be like, hey, it's 5:30 a.m. I'm up. What are you doing? And we almost never got back to each other immediately, but every morning, and it's become part of our daily ritual every day. He and I send each other Marcos to check in with each other and to talk about what's on our minds. But having another human being knowing that we're both trying to get up, that can be really, really powerful and helpful, because that offloads the responsibility from you onto someone else, mentally speaking.
Right.
So that's really helpful too, having some kind of accountability. I would say those two things, having that bright line and having some kind of accountability, those are probably what clinched it for me.
And did it start to get easier? Because the idea of like constantly hitting your snooze button until the last possible minute, it's like it's just showing you that you either consciously or subconsciously don't want to go to your life. Like you don't want to start your day. And that was really powerful for me. And man, it's true. And it was probably like less about life than it was just like going to my job. But does it get easier then when you can kind of be excited about, getting to your passions or to bettering yourself, and then kind of worrying about work later?
Absolutely. That is so big. Like that excitement. Honestly, like I still am not inherently a morning person, I don't think. Maybe I should start working on my beliefs about that. But
start calling yourself one.
Yeah.
I am a morning person.
I struggle. I am. I struggle a little bit when I first wake up. But the thing that's always given me strength is like, but I get to draw. I get to draw, and I will not miss out on that drawing time. Actually, it's funny. Last night I got like super, super excited and stayed up way late drawing, which I never do anymore because I protect my morning so much, but I couldn't let go of how excited I was. And I was like, I'm going to lean into it. Like, what's life if I can't lean into being excited about my art once in a while?
Which, as you know, I think you definitely should when you get that.
Oh yeah. So I did. I leaned in, but that meant that I was really sleepy this morning and I just could not wake up for the life of me. So I actually skipped most of my Miracle Morning stuff, but I still got up with enough time to draw. Because I was like, I will not, like, I love that. I cherish that time so much. Like, my morning time is so special to me. All of it is, but that especially when I walk in front of my computer and I click the mouse to turn it on and I set my cup of coffee down next to it and wait for it to boot up. And that excitement that hits me when I know my drawing canvas is about to pop up and I'm going to get to make some magic for the next hour. Oh, God. I can't tell you how special that is to me and how happy it makes me. It makes me feel like I'm living my dreams and living my purpose, and that my life is mine and I'm the one in control, and that no matter what happens today, no matter how shit this day is, I got my piece in. I did my passion and no one can take that from me. And that feels so amazing. And that specialness carried me through. It got my ass up this morning, even though I wanted to sleep for another 45 minutes. I was like, no, that's 45 minutes I could be drawing. I'm not going to miss that, man. I'm not going to miss it. And I still got up, So I think I will say that does get easier. As far as things getting easier too, after about the first week, it kind of starts to, like, getting up early and, doing your affirmations and all that starts to feel natural. After about a month, you kind of have trouble imagining your mornings without it. So trust the experience of the people who have gone before you, who have said, hey, first week sucks, next 10 days are okay, after that it's much better. Trust that and just tell yourself, okay, it's going to suck this week, but it's going to be better next week,
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I will keep everybody updated with my progress. I plan on doing at least the 30-day thing, seeing what happens, and thank you for your help.
Yeah, my pleasure. Let's set something up. We'll talk about it after we get off mic, I'm sure. But let's set something up on the Facebook group where any of us, like, let's create that opportunity for that accountability, and say in the Facebook group, if anybody wants to start doing a miracle morning practice, even if it's just getting up and doing your creative work, if you don't want to get into the meditation and all that stuff, but you want to make sure you get up and get that creative work done, let's team up on the Facebook page and check in with each other.
Yes, let's do that. We'll come up with something good. We'll figure out something special, and I'll mention it in the summary after this episode for people.
Sweet.
Cool. Al, we have to end this podcast, as you know, with the final push. I know you've already given one. It was like one of the best ones. It really was. I listened back to our conversation. It really was. But you don't necessarily have to top it. But just give us a little bit of a final push, if you don't mind, today.
All right. So for the final push, I'm going to tell you a little story. A long time ago, you were a god. You were a being who had the ability to alter your reality and to create works of incredible beauty and wonder. And then something happened and you forgot. And you've been living your whole life with amnesia, not knowing the power you have. But all it would take is one moment, one decision. All it would take is tapping into that power, even accidentally once. And the floodgates would break open and that power would surge out of you and you would be able to do incredible things that you have never even dreamed of. You would amaze those around you and yourself. And the key to it is following your creativity, because the kind of God that you were was a creator God. You made realities and made works of beauty. And that is your destiny. That is what you are meant to be. So I'm saying to you now, wake up and remember who you are. Wake up and remember that you are a divine being full of creative power, that you can do amazing things. And we need you to. The rest of us need you to step into your power and to be that thing that you were at the beginning of time. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but this world is a bit of a mess. And it's going to take incredible creative power to clean it up. So wake up, do the thing that makes your heart come alive, because that's your divine spark calling to you to remember who you are.
Woo! Alatar, like that book you recommended, you are a badass.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much for that. Everybody, if you want more of Alatar, you can find their work at bluewizardart.newgrounds.com. Anywhere else that you are located recently?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend, if you have a Tumblr account, Tumblr is probably actually the best way to check my workout, but because it is adult in nature, you have to have an account in order to access the blog. But that's just bluewizardart.tumblr.com. And like you said, it can be found on Newgrounds. There's a million other websites that have my stuff. Hentai Foundry is one of them. I like to steer people towards Tumblr and Newgrounds because those are the cleaner, easier to navigate ones. They don't have as many like crazy gross ads.
Right.
Twitter, I'm on there as well. Post all the time. And of course you can find my Patreon, which is patreon.com/bluewizardart. I post all my work there. It is behind the paywall per Patreon's requirements, but $1 is enough to access all the stuff I post, and I give out a lot of rewards to my $1 patrons. I give high-resolution sketch packs, artwork with no logo on it. They get to vote on polls and stuff like that. Like I try to make it a really good value, so that's another place that you can access my work.
Very cool. And we will have that all linked up at today's show notes page, as well as a ton of resources on this one. We'll have all the books that Alatar mentioned, basically everything at yourcreativepush.com/296. Alatar, thank you again for coming on. I can't wait to have you on again to just kind of continue these conversations because they always inspire me and always make me think in new ways. Just really refreshing. And I also really appreciate you switching your date night, which we talked about last time, and I know how important that is for you. So just thank you for kind of making this work.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. And no big deal. We got date night scheduled tomorrow.
Good. Awesome. Good. I'm very glad. Thanks again, Alatar.
Thanks, man.
Ooh, I still get chills from that final push and from that whole conversation, really. So my thanks again to Alatar for coming on the show. It's always inspiring to talk to them, not just through the interviews, but just every day. They have given me so many resources and so many words of encouragement along my creative journey and have helped out so much in the Facebook group and now helping out in the Discord by setting up the Discord because Discord is new to me, but something that I've been starting to get into with crypto, and it's very useful, and I think it'll be very useful for all of us to keep each other inspired. So Alatar set it all up. You can get to there. If you have Discord already and need the invite link, just head to yourcreativepush.com/Discord, and that will take you to the invite link. And if you don't have Discord already, you can get it at discordapp.com or anywhere that you download your apps. There is somewhat of a slight learning curve to it, but we will help you get through that. And I promise that it is very useful, and we will continue to inspire each other on there. That being said, Alatar and I proposed a challenge for all of us. Like I said, I started the Miracle Morning myself, and I think it would be a great idea if we could have a thread on Discord or a thread in the Facebook group as well. We'll get both of them running in case you don't want to dive into Discord or figure out something new yet. We'll be inspiring each other for 30 days. We'll do a 30-day challenge. If you don't want to do all of the things that the Miracle Morning proposes that you do, that's fine. Just waking up early and getting to your creative passion is enough. Just like Alatar said, we'll do a bit of a Marco Polo thing, just saying, hey, I'm here, and we'll like it, or share a selfie with the clock and showing how early it is, that kind of stuff, just to encourage each other and to keep ourselves motivated and accountable. So if you want to find that thread on the Facebook group, just head to yourcreativepush.com/wakeup. And if you want to join us on Discord, again, just download the app or go to yourcreativepush.com/Discord. But if that's too much to remember, have no fear, because we will have that as well as everything that we talked about in today's show notes page. I highly recommend you check it out because there's a ton of great resources that Alatar dropped. yourcreativepush.com/296. But that is all I've got for you today. So hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. Go towards that thing that you're pulled to. Perhaps it's not on your current timeline. Perhaps it's not in your current universe, your current reality, whatever it may be. Just hop universes, just hop realities and jump into that. Take that first step of your montage. You know what you're supposed to do. Sometimes it's as easy as waking up a little bit earlier and getting to your creative passion. Even if you are going to be a little bit tired the rest of your day, I promise you, you are going to be so much happier throughout your day since you were able to get to your daily creative fulfillment. I love you all so much. Go get some amazing work done. We will see you next time. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.